Hey guys, so what's been happening in the hobby this week? Well, we're doing something really special. I'm finally getting to do my dream army. Okay, well, at least one of my main dream armies anyway, my dream project I've wanted to do for a very long time. And I thought, what better topic to talk about in the hobby chats than, doing your dream project or your dream army and, talk about the benefits, the pros and cons of that. Well, there really aren't any cons, but, talking about that idea of getting into that dream project that you've always wanted to do. And, now with the hobby the way it is and all of the different options and everything that's out there, I can finally tackle this dream project, this dream army, and give it a go. And so it's something I've always wanted to do back from the old days when I used to work for GW back in the golden era. And and then after I left and everything, I'd amassed a huge number of Space Marine parts, specifically Mark 6 armor, the Beakies. I love that helmet and I love that armor type. And with the release of Heresy and so on, and the Mark 6 armor, it's finally possible to do some like more true scale version of this. And I've always wanted to do a Dark Angel like third company army, and so that's what we're going to be delving into. And so I've done this little conversion on one of the the new Heresy models. Done the whole Beakie helmet, but with the winged helm. It's sort of a bit of an homage to the old Dark Angel Captain model, if anyone remembers that. With the sword facing down. This time it's up in the air, but with the sort of the feathered helm. So in this case, it's sort of the feathers out this way. But I thought that was a really nice little touch, and sort of gives that that Dark Angel vibe. I use Azrael parts for this, so the combi weapon and some of the little parts and so on, the helmet and the sword arm. But a pretty simple conversion to do. Just a few little areas to turn it into a Dark Angel. But really, this project is all about sort of retro, early, let's say, Rogue Trader third edition with modern as well. So I want to do a kind of a combined fusion here to create like a really cool Beakie only Dark Angel force. And in terms of composition, I'm thinking more third, fourth edition 40k in terms of the structure, the tactical squads and that sort of thing, the captains and so on, all the different sort of things that make up the army. Very much a firstborn style. So, firstborn, bestborn, and keeping to that theme. So, it's going to be that. We'll go into it more as we talk about it in this discussion, but, as to what my little dream project is and all of that. But yeah, I think this is going to be really, really fun. You're going to see a few of these on the channel, and we've got some good colors here. We're just going super traditional, something I wouldn't normally do. I normally do custom schemes, but here we're doing something very traditional. So GW colors, building up in the progression, with a few little other colors thrown in there, and building up that armor in a very traditional way. And hopefully we'll end up with something really cool. So I'll stop waffling on in this, and we'll get into the chat. Let's do it. All right, so dream projects. Yeah, this has been something that's been in my mind for the longest time. We're talking like 20 years or something. It's been sitting around in my head, all from way back in the days in the early 2000s when I was working with the company. And, I'd started amassing all these Mark 6 parts from the tactical squads. When you work for the company, you get a discount, and I would just go around and pilfer, just get all the staff that didn't want their Mark 6 armor. I would just be like asking for it and that sort of thing, and sort of slowly building it up, buying a bunch of boxes and taking out the Mark 6 components and swapping the rest, and trying to do my little haggle deals to try to like build a collection. And I can remember getting quite a lot of Mark 6 parts, but by the end, by the time I bought or haggled or swapped or whatever I'd done to sort of amass these parts, I'd finally gotten a fairly good collection together. And I was about to start my Mark 6 project when I left the company, and then study and other things got in the way, and so it never really took off. I'd done a few test things and so on, but I never really got a chance to really get into it. And there's another little story there, a nice humorous story there about another staff member that hated Mark 6 armor, and so I won't go into that story on this, but essentially there was a little bit of a fun joke going on there to sort of like do the Mark 6 because he didn't like it, that sort of thing. I was always always very, very. I liked a good robust bit of competition when I was doing my painting stuff or hobby stuff. To gee up the other guys in the company or the customers. I always used to like challenging people and getting them into things, and getting them inspired or excited to do something, or challenge them to something. We used to do tons of 24-hour challenges and all kinds of crazy. This is in a different time period. When I guess OH&S rules on how stores operate were very different, and you had a different kind of vibe, at least here in Australia. So we do all kinds of things to sort of get people excited about the hobby and all of that sort of stuff. It was a good time. It was very cool. Anyone that's in the age group that remembers the golden era here in Australia will know that sort of thing went on, and it was a lot of fun, and customers weren't excluded from those kinds of things. We included everyone in those sorts of hobby I guess we'll say experiences, and it was cool. It was just cool. Anyway, so long story short, I've had this Mark 6 full Beakie Dark Angel army in my head for a while, and with Heresy out and that sort of thing, we now see a huge range of the early Mark armors, and I can finally do that project, and so with some Mark 6 armor that's actually more in proportion, which is lovely. I love the old school tactical squad models, but it's great that we've got some that are in full scale, so that's really nice. And so I bought one of the second edition boxes before they went out, before third edition came in. So I've got a full box of a bunch of them, about 40 of them or whatever it is in that box. So I can definitely go ahead and do some conversions and start building some of those up. So I can start it off. And I've also gotten the third edition box as well. So you'll be seeing a bit of Heresy as I've talked about before on the channel. There'll be some Heresy coming out and so on, for a number of different chapters and all that sort of thing. So I really like that. But yeah, this little project is something that I'm definitely going to be showcasing on the channel and moving forward with. So we're starting out with this captain, and so what was I looking at? So I guess we'll now go more broader terms, and we'll start talking about sort of like when you're initially deciding, I guess, as I am, to get into it, and some of the parameters I've chosen to sort of set I guess a target goal. I find with these sorts of projects and things like that, and I've talked about this before, is setting goals and figuring out exactly what you want out of it, because this is sort of not necessarily a gaming project. I mean, I can game with it, and I guess, as I alluded to in the intro, I'm thinking about this more in terms of third, fourth edition 40k, sort of a more old school style composition, so to do with like weapon choices and so on, all of that. But I'm going to be including and converting from both modern kits and Heresy kits and older stuff as well, whatever I get my hands on, to sort of get this sort of retro modern kind of vibe going. And but so in that way, it's probably not going to be necessarily legal for modern 40k, although maybe some of it will be. But I'm imagining one-page rules is where I'm probably going to be playing games. The guys in my club, they play one-page rules a lot. So there's a few of the guys in there anyway play that. So I'll be able to, at least opportunity to have a game with these if I wanted to, although it's not my main focus here. And also, actually, I wouldn't mind playing some old school, like third edition, fourth edition 40k, because that's like that's like the best edition, right? The 3.5 codexes, that whole time period is a really great period. Those few editions that came out in those early 2000 times for both fantasy and 40k, and all the other games, Mordheim, etc., Necromunda, Blood Bowl. It was a really, really good time to be in the hobby in terms of game rules for what sort of the kind of games that GW produced then. I think we can all agree that there's some pretty good editions of the game. I kind of think of GW as kind of like a rock band, and they've kind of, this is a whole nother topic we could talk about, but I kind of feel like, GW as a rock band, they've already sort of hit their peak, their best albums have already happened. And so now they're sort of like in the older stage of they're still a great band, and you like listening to them, and you like going going along, and sometimes they come out with some like cool new tracks, you know, and you enjoy it, you know, and every now and again they bring one out that you like, but there's nothing quite like the old hits, you know what I mean? And when you go to see them live, you really want them to play those couple of tunes that are the ones that they're known for, even if they themselves don't particularly want to do it. But you know, although not all of them, some of them like doing it. But you know, you want to hear those tracks because they're really the peak of their sound, right? Of that particular band's thing. And I think GW is a bit like that, even though today, like the miniatures are just excellent, and the studio team, the sculptors are hitting new heights. That's sort of like, if you can think about that from a band point of view, that's like the technical side of the band is improved, you know, sound quality, instrumentation, etc., presentation, all that stuff. But the soul of the band, the real you know, sort of energy behind all of that, that's from a different time, and that's how I sort of see it. And so for me with this, I'd want to be playing you know, some of the early editions of the games. I think that's where the fun will be for this particular project anyway. So setting goals. So if we think about that as a starting point to talk about this, yeah, I think you really want to think about it like, oh, I've got that really great project I'd love to start. You know, maybe you've got some expendable income now, maybe you're in a better job, and you're able to sort of afford this, or just you have the time to think about it and you'd like to do it, even if you don't have necessarily the cash, or it's going to be a very slow grow thing. That's another aspect of this. I'm thinking about this in terms of a very small, slow grow kind of project that isn't going to dominate your time, but something that you can really indulge and enjoy the time that you spend with it. So yeah, goal setting. So, you know, for me, that again, a small project that's going to be, you know, almost every model will be converted in some way or changed. You know, I'm going to spend time painting these. It's only a small amount. And then, so you sort of think about it in terms of waves. So I'm going to start with a small amount and see how I go with that. And if I enjoy it, I'm going to then do, you know, another round of this. And that's sort of how I'm approaching it. And I think that's probably a pretty healthy way to do it, so you don't overload yourself. So, you know, for me, it's going to be this captain. I want to do a tactical squad with the, you know, the full trimmings. So the special weapon, the heavy weapon, the sergeant, you know, the combat leader in the squad leader, sorry. So you can combat the units. So I have like two squads of 5, you know, and I want to do the rhino for them and deck out the rhino in lots of little trimmings on the armor and that sort of thing, and then have you know, and do a dreadnought. So one of the sort of the classic missile launcher las cannon style dreadnoughts, that's pretty appropriate for Dark Angels, and I'll probably use the modern kits for that, and convert them and do some like fun stuff to them, and you know, and just get a nice feel. And I think that's plenty, and that's going to be my first wave for me to sort of spend some time modeling these up and having a lot of fun just doing that project and creating these beakies. And then if I like that, I'll do, you know, the next wave and maybe choose some other units and add those in and do it like that. And so that way you've got an endpoint somewhere that you're going to, and that becomes your cool little project, that thing that you wanted to do from when you were younger or some other time in your life, and you can now complete it and get a taste of it and see if you like it, because you know, your taste might have changed. It may not be necessarily the dream project you thought it was. You know, that can happen, right? It you know, the realization of doing it can actually change your opinion of it, or your tastes have changed totally over the years. So I mean, you know, for most people in this hobby, I don't think that's actually true for the most part. These things stay with you for a very long time. So I'd imagine that those tastes are still there, but you know, they could have changed. And so this allows you to sort of in a very small way test out those ideas. So yeah, so once you've got your, I guess, your parameters down of you know what you want to do, and you've sort of maybe honed in on the project a little bit, and you understand where you're going to go with it, then the next sort of step is thinking about, you know, the colors and the paint scheme you're going to use, the process, you know, and then beyond that, you know, is there going to be converting? Is there going to be a little mix of kits and so on to complete this? Maybe there's some 3D printing in there. Maybe there's some other elements. So you sort of like work out and go through each step. So in the case of this project, We do have some conversion, and we do have some a scheme that we're trying to hit. And in this one is a very classic scheme. So I wanted to use as much classic colors as possible to get that feel. And so we're looking at some GW colors. And so you start to build your recipe together of these different processes and try to figure it out. And in terms of kits, it's going to be an exploratory thing. We're going to be using some heresy kits, some modern kits, etc., and trying to blend that together. And so that's pretty simple, but it could be a bit more elaborate. You might be looking at third-party vendors, again, some 3D printed parts. You might be looking at a whole range of additional elements into your project to achieve the result that you want for whatever it might be. And that's cool too. You just work through it. So you're now establishing, you got your little roadmap, and then you kind of know what you want, and and now you're getting that paint scheme together. You're getting your conversion parts, and again, it's small, so you're not burning a huge amount of money on this to start with. And like I'm doing here, then we move into the first one that you're going to do, or the test piece. In this case, I've got the captain. I kind of already know. Like, you don't necessarily have to do a test model if you already kind of know the process and you're confident that you're going to be able to do it. But if you're not confident about it, then yeah, you would be doing a test model first for your scheme. You wouldn't be going on to that first model, that first sort of loving kind of dream model that you want to do. You do a test model first on something else just to make sure the scheme is going to work. In this case, I know it's going to be fine, so I'm happy to go ahead and do the first dream model, the first one that I've converted, and that's okay. And that's what you're doing, and that's how I would initiate these projects, is to start out with one model that's achievable, something in a day or two or a couple of days, or however long you want to spend on it, and do that first, because that's a really great thing. You can put the music on, or the movies, or whatever you like in the background. Maybe some 40k lore, or some fantasy lore, or whatever game system or genre that you're painting this mini for. You can put some of that on to get you G'd up, and get you in the mood, and and then just go for it, and have fun and explore that process of doing that mini. And I think that's like a really great thing to do in this hobby. I think it's one of the coolest parts when you've been doing this for a while and you have a sort of a history with it, and you have projects that you didn't get to do, or ideas that you never got to execute on or finish. To be able to go back and do these things is a really, really cool part of the hobby. So by now you're settling in, you're painting your first mini, and as I'm doing here, and that's where you want to be, and you get to experience that the joy of that process, and that's a great place to start with any dream project, and getting into that. And for me, this has been a long time coming. As I said, I've had it in my head for like 20 years. So that sort of gives you an idea of how ancient I am. It's just really cool to be doing it, because, I think, yeah, as I said, the longer you spend in this hobby, the more of these sorts of things end up coming along the way, and being stuck in your head and that sort of thing. And you really do sort of like, have some of those projects that you would really love to do, and at some point in your life, you do get this time where you've got a little bit of time and space to be able to maybe put that in, and that's where this comes in. And so I guess in terms of, as I said, pros, it's got so many benefits. I mean, it's satisfying something deep inside of you that you've held on to for a long time, so you get to finally realize it, and the satisfaction of that is great. I mean, there's so many things there. It's probably digging into process and schemes that really speak to you, right? Most of these dream projects are usually color schemes and creatively projects that speak to you on some level. So in some way, your skills are going to be enhanced by this, because it's got the things that you like, and that's just being reinforced. So you're digging into process, and you're creating that project that speaks to you. And I think that's going to only reinforce your love of the thing that you're doing, and really allow that creativity to flourish. So you're really hitting positives on many different levels, both physically, the practical aspects of painting minis and the color schemes and so on, but also mentally and that sort of thing. You're also satisfying a lot of those yearnings you had, or the desires you had for this hobby, right back from when you begun, before you knew how to do it, right? And a lot of that's where these dream projects come from, an earlier time when you maybe didn't have the skills, or you did but you didn't have the time, or didn't have the money, or whatever it might be that was stopping that process from going forward. Or maybe you tried it but you didn't really get very far, or something, or it was half done, or something like that. Like maybe you did try but it just didn't end up happening the way you wanted, and so you really want to do it the right way this time. You really want to go at it, and that's cool, right? That's a great positive to again to be able to satisfy that and finish it off, and give yourself that new invigoration of the thing that you love. And I think that's all really positive. As I said, there aren't any real cons to this process of doing this. I can't see anything that's a con, that isn't, I guess, a general con for an expensive hobby that we all do. That we all know the memes, that this hobby isn't cheap. So the general cons that come with a hobby like this generally are there for this type of project too. I guess the only con is making sure you do actually have the time and space to do it, because you don't want to go down this path and then just stop it halfway, like maybe happened the first time you tried it, because you've overloaded yourself with too many projects. So obviously you want to incorporate, that's why I said a very small start, a very small contained thing, and this is sort of like a nice little indulgence that you go to from time to time. Almost like an in-between project. This isn't meant to dominate your entire time. So, you don't want to overload. I think that's where the con might come in. You don't want to overload yourself. You definitely want to know that you've got the spare time to do this, and that it's something you can dabble in and just slowly develop. So not getting too obsessed over trying to complete everything all at once. I think that's where the con will come in, overloading yourself. And that's totally true, but that's almost true of any project that you do in this hobby. You can easily overload, because there's so many cool things, the hobby's in a state at the moment. As I said, in this time period for me, it makes this project possible. There's so much out there, so many choices and options for you to really dig into these sorts of projects and create something really unique, that it's almost overwhelming. There's just millions of parts that are available to you, from both the official companies and the third-party vendors. Between it all, there's just so much there for you to sort of dabble at and enjoy and come up with something. So that's probably where the con is, keeping it small, keeping it tight, so that you don't get too much of that overload. And then I think really you've really armed yourself from any kind of major cons that might come from this. I can't really see any others. There really isn't any. It's just super cool to be doing it. I'm just happy. It's like how most of us feel about the old world. We're just happy it's back. You know what I mean? Like anyone that's playing old world right now that was from the fantasy days is just happy that fantasy's back. You know what I mean? Yeah, they call it something else. Yeah, they try to pretend it's 300 years in the past or something, but it's fantasy. Like let's not beat around the bush. We've got fantasy back. All the models are back. They're all the same. And the designs haven't changed. There's nothing. All the same gods and all the same stuff that's in it is all the same. It's just fantasy. It's just the company's way of trying to pretend that they didn't make a mistake and blow up something that we all love and that they love too. Coincidentally, that the people inside the company also love, and some corporate decision that was made, terrible idea, and now they've found a way to sort of save face and bring it back without hurting their bottom line or whatever other business decision is how they've been able to justify it. But none of us really care about that. I certainly don't. I'm just happy that they figured out a way to bring it back, and that's the same for a dream project. You're just happy that you're able to do it, and I think that's like the main thing. I'm not too interested in corporate interests or problems or any of that. I'm interested in the creative aspects of this hobby and the positive effects that has on people and on me and on you and on everyone that's engaged in this. I think that's where the fun is, and the enjoyment, and the social aspects of the game, and hanging out with people, like-minded people that love this thing. That's all the things that I care about. The business side doesn't really interest me. I'm just happy it's here and we can all enjoy it and have fun. And I think that's kind of the same thing here with the dream project. You just get into it and have fun and enjoy the fact that these options are available, and make use of them, and have fun doing what you do for your hobby, you know, whatever that project might be, however big or small it might be. You know, I don't think you can ever go wrong with these sorts of things. It's too cool, right? It's you know, once a hobbyist, always a hobbyist. And if you've got that idea that you've had a long time ago and you want to redo it, you know, there's really nothing stopping you these days. There's so much options out there to get involved and have a go. And you never know where that will lead. You know, you never know where your creativity will go with that. It might evolve into something entirely new, which is another kind of, you know, other positive from this, or other unexpected outcome, is that it can you know, lead you to new ideas, or to a new thing that you didn't even think of before, a new way of working, or a new process, or paint scheme, or whatever it might be, that might catapult you into a whole new thing, which ends up being even cooler, you know, than the thing you're already doing. So that's really great too. So yeah, I can't think of any much more cons. I'm pretty positive on this idea, and I'm having a great time painting this Beakie boy, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. As of right now, I don't know, but you guys do, and you're seeing it, and you've seen the thumbnail, so you know where it ends up. And I think we'll go and see my closing thoughts, and you know, we'll jump forward in time, and I'm sure I'll be very happy, and we'll see how I go with the finished result, and take a look at it, and get my closing thoughts. All right, let's get to it. And there we go, my first Archangel in like 20 years, all done. Let's take a look. Okay, so yeah, what an experience. It was really fun getting into this and painting him up. Yeah, I think I got about as far as I wanted to go with this one. I didn't quite get to the freehand on the cape. The cape was a little bit sort of difficult, so I couldn't quite figure out, you know, maybe something here, but I couldn't quite figure out how to get that in and make it look nice. So I decided to leave that. We'll do it on the next one. But I did get his chapter symbol on the shoulder pad there, which I think is nice, and a little bit of damage on it, and you know, little scratches and so on. But overall, I think this is really cool. It's a great start to my, you know, my third company, Beakie army, and I think that's really cool. So you know, the next one on the list will be a tactical squad, so we'll be digging into that at some point in the future. And yeah, I thought it was really fun. So a nice little discussion on, you know, dream projects, dream armies, and you know, getting into that and enjoying the process. And I think this was a nice start to that idea. And you know, now I've, you know, learning from this, I can now move forward and add some things and change things around. And you know, I was playing with some different metallics here. You would have seen in the video, just playing with some Valleos there and doing a different process slightly. Not so much of the shade colors and the washes, but I was building it up more flat colors, or flat metallics, and just seeing what sort of variations I could get to do the whole thing in a more sort of, I guess, more seamless painterly way, so I'm not stopping and starting so much. Same for the reds and so on, and the bone and that sort of thing. I sort of went through a more painterly process, and I think that it worked pretty well. You know, it's nice. It's a bit more of a naturalistic kind of look, not so stark highlights, that sort of thing. But yeah, nice, and I paid more attention to the armor and the highlighting on the edges and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's where I sort of focused my attention. So yeah, I think overall it worked, and we'll definitely be exploring this more and going into it. So I think that's pretty cool. So I hope you guys have all, you know, enjoyed the ride, and thinking about your own dream projects and that sort of thing, because it is a fun thing to get into. So yeah, but I'll leave a nice image for this one as I normally do in the paint list. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit the like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one.